Hello everybody, hope that you are doing very well this evening and welcome to today's Contenders live stream. I nearly got mixed up a bit there. Yeah, the Contenders live stream tonight where I'm going to be going over link chart of the week and moving on to Fibonacci extensions. Hope that you are all very well. Start of December should be... For me personally, December is a very, 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 very busy month. I imagine most of you all will have a busy month too. So have a good one. And yeah, tonight I want to start with link chart of the week. As you all know, this chart of the week was literally posted this morning. At what time did I post this? It must have been at around 10 o'clock. I probably posted it in the group. So obviously what this is now, coming up 10 hours later, so it's literally just been like posted in the morning, more of a day trade. So there's not been anything massively going on link, but I still think it's a really, really nice setup to show you like how I basically come around this day trade, because it was a decent day trade, hit first, take profit one, but then has just come back down to more or less entry right now. Obviously, Bitcoin has, as you all know, Bitcoin moved like 10% up in the matter of minutes. So it's been an extremely volatile day again for Bitcoin. Absolutely has been. And I will discuss Bitcoin. I think I'll go over Bitcoin at the end. Yeah, I'll cover Bitcoin at the end. I believe we'll hopefully stay range bound during this video. Or video live stream. Yeah, I will cover Bitcoin for you. Let me just make sure everything's okay. Sound check. Okay, thank you very much. Cool. Oh yeah, this is going. I think this is going next weekend. I'm like so fed up with this beard. I just need to go to the barber and get it cut, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's go over link and then we'll move on to Fibonacci extensions, which is one of my favorite tools. I obviously we've only done let's go over link first and then we'll go over Fibonacci. So two orders. As you'll know, if you were in the Champions live stream on Sunday, you'll know when I was looking at link, I said I expect link to go down lower. I'm expecting lower prices on link, and that's exactly what happened. Link since Sunday went down. So that's pretty nice. So I was obviously looking for around the weekly, and here I had one weekly order at the weekly exactly, which in the end just went straight through. And second order at 2784 sats. Okay, 27874 sats, which is basically the one-to-one extension, a really slight front run of the one-to-one extension. Okay, and again, this is where you need to be a little bit aware of the coins that you're trading. I'll cover you some examples on link, but link really likes to hit the one-to-one extension and actually find really nice support on and around it before moving up. So this was a slight front run of that, but I'll go over the Fibonacci confluences that we had here, because there's like 8 confluences. Yeah, a lot. So it was basically a day trade from the Fibonacci confluence, plus we obviously had a daily and weekly level more or less very, very close together. Okay, but primarily the one-to-one extension for today's live stream. So when I decided to do this chart of the week this morning, the reason I chose link is primarily it is because of the one-to-one extension, and I just felt it was a really nice, it was my setup with the one-to-one, and I thought, wow, obviously we had it on Bitcoin actually, but in terms of altcoins, it was my favorite that included an extension, which I'm obviously covering today, so I felt it was a good one for chart of the week basically. Mental stop below the 1272. Like, this is what I do when I'm day trading. Okay, so this is definitely a day trading setup. So I'm looking at the 1272 as a region of invalidation. We start closing below that on, for me, a 15-minute time frame. 5-minute if there's high volume. Okay, if I see high volume coming, I'll close out on the 5-minute. But primarily a 15-minute close below, that's invalidated my setup, and that's where I'd look to close out of it. Hasn't happened yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get stopped on this one probably very, very shortly, if I'm honest with you. Take profit 12844, and this is very, very nice indeed. It was the midpoint of the channel and the CC, exactly, so the Champions channel and the actual channel itself right on top of each other. So that is like perfect confluence for taking profit, and we did hit my take profit 1 here before retracing back down. So if I get stopped out, for me it's still a profitable trade, although absolutely nothing to shout home about. Yeah, it's not going to be the most worst, but you can see here the middle of this channel on top of, from high down to the low, literally on that spike up we hit this. But let me go over the confluences that we had here first. Okay, let's come back out to the 15-minute. Okay, so the confluences, yeah, this might look a little bit messy. this is probably going to look a bit messy, just because of the amount of fibs I've got loaded up here. Let me just go over the first one for you all, okay? So let's just go over, well, let me just actually just remove everything off of this, and let me remove, oh, I'm just thinking, sorry, it might be really a little bit confusing. Well, let's just try and go through them, okay? So we'll come down onto the 5-minute chart. So what do we have here? As you can see, I've got these list of, well, confluences down here, okay? So let's zoom in a little bit, okay? So first of all, I had 2 ladders orders on this. One was on the weekly, one was down for well, around the 1-to-1 extension. But what we have going on here is, well, the weekly itself. Why did I go for the weekly? Obviously, before this happened, okay, I was very much thinking back to what happened yesterday, and that was where Link did get a double bottom, okay, very close to the double bottom, before getting a very big rise to the upside. That rise yesterday was like 5% rise, okay, so a 5% rise, obviously rejecting off of the monthly. Okay, another rejection off of the monthly before heading back down. What we had earlier was one bounce off of the weekly. So as you'll know, I think it was the first, it must have been Sunday, yeah, so on the first, when we were looking at this, price was around here on its way down, okay, on its way down. So we did eventually get to the weekly, which I was hoping for, and it did get one bounce, but again, nothing to really shout home about on the bounce, but it got a bounce, okay, and a drop and a lower high, and obviously falling straight down through. Okay, on this fall straight down through, where did we bounce from? Well, we're bouncing from here. Well, I was looking for a double bottom just from what happened prior, but obviously that never got any bounce at all, and it just went straight through the level. So I got a fill there, and then a fill on my entry, 7 to 8, 7, 4 sats. Yeah, pretty nice on the low, okay? What you can see here is, let me go through these fibs that I have got lined up here. Sorry, it's a little bit confusing for me at the moment. So what we can see, let's go through them one by one, okay? So I'll move each one so you can actually see it, like moving the number, okay? So from high down to the low, okay, we've got here you see the moving on the red, we've got the -1, okay? So the -1 of this from high to low of this swing, okay? So moving on, we've got the we've got the -2, okay? And that's, the 2 extension, apologies, from this low up to this high. Okay, so obviously here the negative and the extension are going to be very close together because the pivots are very close, but let me remove each one as I go through them. So we got obviously from the high down to the low the negative, okay, then from the low up to the high we've got the the expansion, we've got the expansion there of the 2 to 2. Okay, then we've got the 1313 to 1272 lined up here, and this is from the bigger pool, from the low of the last swing low, basically, last swing low, okay, you see this moving here, last swing low up to the swing high, we had the 1.133 to the 1272. Again, the confluences on this daily and weekly level. So, we're going through Fibonacci and the weekly and daily themselves, and I'll show you those weekly and daily in a second. Okay, and then we also have the 1414, which is from, let me remind myself, this is getting pulled from, that's the negative, we got to go out. Okay, so from the last swing, well, not the last, but the swing low here, you see the swing low here, to the swing high up at the monthly, okay, we had the 1414 extension, and then more locally, okay, then more locally for the last fib confluence here, we had from the high, okay, from the high up here, you see the last sort of swing high, okay, the swing high, down to, moving it again, the swing low of here, so swing high to swing low, we move up, and then you had the -236, okay. Then let's go over the weekly a second. The weekly, we had the weekly, which is obviously just our standard weekly level, okay, and then our daily level, which is obviously just our standard daily level as well, okay. Then when we zoom in on the 15-minute time frame, so you can see this is breaking down right now, but nevertheless it still hit a take profit. But then you can see from the high up here, okay, so from the high up here, okay, down to the low, okay, down to the low of what it was the low at the time, you can see that that's where the CC was coming in, Okay, if we move it up to the high, from the high down to the low, you come up to the 618. And I'd also like to show you the channel which is going on here, because it's being really, really, really nice. That's connected from pivot number 1 up the high here. So you see the connection at the first high, and then it's, well, I've kind of extended it down to the touch that you get at the weekly. Okay, so you see touch number 1, touch number 2 at the weekly, then you're getting the touches of the highs here, a little wick through, and well, it's not touched again. Okay, but then on the low side, obviously from the pivot high to that secondary low, you do get the next few touches on the 26th, 27th, 28th of November. So yeah, that's the channel as well. So you can see, just if you just look at the mid, I'll go run through the channel really quick. It's just, I really like it. So you see from high to low, obviously I've got this moving on to the weekly here, but from, just look at the midpoint of the respect of the midpoint as we run through this really quickly. Exact touch of the midpoint, midpoint bounce, midpoint bounce. Okay. A lot of price action through the midpoint before moving up again, but you can see this is all centered around the weekly. But again, midpoint bounce, midpoint bounce, midpoint up, loss of the midpoint, rejections from the midpoint, higher low, coming back up, midpoint, little bit of a bounce again, SR off of the midpoint here. Okay, here coming down, midpoint, getting a bounce, SR around the midpoint. Okay, midpoint, and then again, literally pretty much a doji candle on the midpoint. Then you see a string of resistance off the midpoint again, and then ultimately to where we got off of today's rejection, again the midpoint. And you can actually see earlier in the night where you were getting midpoint support before obviously putting in that lower high. And yeah, that was the confluence of that channel, which I do think is just absolutely lovely, of then high to low 618, or between the 618 and the 66, and the middle of that channel coming together. So yeah, that I love that channel, if I'm honest with you. So now what I'm going to say is it's very, very, very likely indeed that this is coming down lower, because really what you wanted to see, or I guess what I wanted to see, instead of just coming up here, hitting take profit 1 and falling down, that's obviously not what I wanted. I wanted it to come up here, form a higher low, and head up. But now we've actually taken that original low. It's much extremely probable that I get stopped out here in a matter of minutes probably, and comes back down to a lower level. But nevertheless, that for a day trade, that's like a few percent gain there, by the way, from the second entry, about 2.5%. So yeah, it's not too bad. But obviously I didn't close out my whole position. But yeah, I guess if this is coming down, if this is going to come down lower, well, this is the thing with Link. I'll quickly mention this on Link, that it doesn't have too much support in this whole region. Okay, so you see it very quickly goes through the level, well, especially on the rise here. The rise was insanely quick. So, e.g., that there is not much support that's really created in this section here. And that, from where we are now, is about a move of coming on 10%. And there's not strong support in that 10% area. Your next area around 244, more or less. You got a bit of SR coming in there, but nothing major. So this is like, for me, it was worth the trade, knowing that this is the last major area of support on Link before you can easily see another 10% drop. In my opinion, you could see a 10% drop really fast. Obviously, you have got the last areas of the wicks. Okay, so the wicks, all you want to be aware of on the wick is that you could see something along these lines. Okay, where you wick it, wick through those wicks before moving back up again. But yeah, obviously, if you start closing through this level, you're probably going to see a 10% drop fairly quickly, I would say, on Link. Is there a head and shoulders on Link on the 4-hour chart? I guess you could look at it like this. It's I guess you're looking at it like this. Yeah, I guess it's not like picture perfect, but yeah, it's not amazing. What you want to say is definitely when if it breaks down, you want to see the close below that level, and you also would definitely need to see an increase in bear volume on the drop. So that's all I'd say. You definitely need to see. That's a possibility. It's not the best head and shoulders, if I'm honest with you. It's really not the best, but yeah, clearly that's a level of support. So this level of support where the wicks are, you close through that, I think you can come down easily 10% at the very least. Okay. ENG making a big move. I've been trading ENG. I'll cover ENG at the end. I've been trading ENG today, but I don't want to get stuck on with other things. But yeah, ENG, I think can easily be moving. If it gets going, 100%. But I'll cover ENG at the end. But I have been trading that recently. Obviously, this is all coming from a weekly bounce on ENG. Yeah, moving on. Let's cover other things at the end of the stream. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you this few extensions that went on in Link actually. So let's come out to the 1 hour a second. Okay, and this is an example of one of the extensions that happened on Link. So you see here from the very high, so the high, down to the first low, up to the second high. And you see here where you hit the 1-to-1 extension really, really nicely. Okay, and then that got like a 6% bounce up to the top of the channel. So that was one where I wanted to show you this 1-to-1 extension. So, but obviously this is what we're going to be covering today. But this is what I like to look for, is the 1-to-1. So yeah, bit swift there on Link, but yeah, it was more of just a day trade, little trade, nothing, no amazing setup there. Well, I guess it was kind of a nice setup, but a bit too, yeah, more of a day trade setup than anything else. So that's swiftly gone through Link there, if I'm honest, very swiftly. But nevertheless, I want to move on to the what I really want to cover today, and that's Fibonacci extension. Fibonacci extension for me. Okay, I've made a few notes here. Well, I really enjoy using it. Okay, so let's firstly go over the differences. Because I sometimes confuse the wording myself of the Fibonacci extension and the Fibonacci expansion. Okay, and the expansion is obviously using the retracement tool that I've covered in the past. I occasionally refer to it as the extension. Through not saying the correct word, simply that. But there is obviously the big distinction of the expansion being, using the retracement tool, and the extension is where we're taking 3 pivots. In my opinion, it's correlated very much so with Elliott waves, because this is the main tool for Elliott waves. You don't really use the expansion in Elliott waves, you very much use the extension. But yeah, the extension, for me, you don't have to have any Elliott wave theory at all, so you don't need to know anything about Elliott waves to use this tool. Let's just make that clear to start with. All you need to do is have 3 pivots. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. But yeah, the Fibonacci extension tool is slightly different than all the other Fibonacci tools I've covered thus far. This tool is only used for targets on external moves. Okay, this will make more sense as we go through, obviously, the slides today. But although many of you have no Elliott wave knowledge, and obviously I will be doing a whole series for you on the subject of Elliott waves, this is the primary tool of Elliott waves. So this is just, I was debating, if I'm honest with you, whether I cover the extension tool when I do Elliott waves, or to do it today. Obviously I've decided because it's a Fibonacci tool and you don't actually need to know Elliott waves, it's just that it kind of helps. But yeah, just be aware it's the main tool of that, but there is no requirement to have any Elliott wave knowledge at all. Okay, so the most common extensions you are looking for are just simply the 1 and the 1618 extension. I really like to use the 1-to-1, find it very helpful for at least taking profits. Okay, if an asset or anything that you trade sort of thing doesn't hit the 1-to-1 extension, that is a big sign of weakness. Okay, again, this is going to make sense as I go through the slides today, so you might want to rewatch this one, and when you rewatch it, that will make sense. But yeah, basically I love to trade to 1-to-1 extensions, using this sometimes as an entry, sometimes as a take profit level. Again, as with every single tool I've ever covered, it's all about confluence. So it's not just like you're going to use this tool on its own and think that it's going to work, wonderful. Let me just close out of Steam a second. But it is very much so that you do need to use this in confluence with every other, other tools that I've covered thus far. It's not something you want to use on its own. Okay, so that's just really important to be aware of. Cool. So moving on to the levels. Okay, firstly, let me show you the tool. Okay, so let's go over onto Bitcoin, for example, a second. Okay, you want to use this tool. Firstly, it's located on the left hand side, and on TradingView they actually call it the trend-based fib extension. If you're not aware, that's what they call it here. Okay, so they call it the trend-based fib extension. Okay, and we can just put on the extension here. Okay, these are the levels that I use if you want to use the same levels as me. I will also use, which I haven't got highlighted here, sometimes the 113. Okay, 131. I can't remember now. 1313. I used it's the same as on the expansion, 1.133, 1.133. So that's another one that I use. I didn't have it highlighted there, but yeah, that's only used for, on the extension tool, I only use that for literally one harmonic pattern. So this one, it's got, so that one you don't really use very much at all, if I'm honest. It's literally only used for one pattern, so you're not really hardly ever going to be using it, but just to be aware, I guess, that you will very occasionally use it. But yeah, primarily it's not on, and really the main ones you're going to be looking for are the 0618, the 1, and the 1618. Obviously these higher Fibonacci numbers, okay, this is also not used too much, it's only used on one harmonic pattern, so I'll remove it temporarily. Yeah, your main ones, also this isn't used too much, your main ones are going to be the 0618, the 1, and the 1618. Okay, and obviously the higher numbers of like the 2 extension, the 2618, 3618, 4618, etc, 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 they come into play, quite obviously, that once you've taken the 1618, well, then you can use these for extra levels to be targeting, essentially. Okay, but yeah, these are the main numbers that you'll be using. Okay, if I'm honest, this again is the 0618 is very much Elliott wave theory, if I'm honest. If you got 0 Elliott wave theory, then you're just going to be mainly concentrating on the 1 and the 1618. These two numbers. Okay, and then obviously if you break through the 2618, well, the 1618, that's where you look for the 2 and the 2618. Does that make sense? Before I move on, does that make sense? If someone just wants to say yes or no, as long as that makes sense, I'll move on. It's just let me just explain it one more time. So the 0618 and the 0236, the 0.382, sorry, these two are really only Elliott wave theory, so I'm not going to be covering them tonight. The 1.133 and the 1.414 are only used for one harmonic pattern, so they're very, very rarely used, and I'm not covering harmonics tonight either, so they're not really generally used. So generally, if you're just using this tool alone with no other theory, okay, you're really only going to be concentrating on the 1, the 1618, the 2, and the 2618. It's very rare that you go above the 2618, although possible, obviously. It's very rare that you go above the 2618. So mainly you're going to be focused on these 4 numbers if you have no knowledge of any other tools thus far. Cool. People have said it makes sense. Brilliant. I just wanted to, really emphasize those numbers of where I'm using them and for what reasons. Okay. Cool. So moving on. So that's what I read out earlier. So yeah, this is basically how you're using this tool. I want to start with this slide. Okay, so starting with this slide. So reading like what we've got here. So as you saw, that the Fibonacci extension tool does require 3 pivots. This one for me is a lot easier to teach as I go through examples. So I will take at the end, I'll go through lots of examples, and because it's a tool that to teach, I believe, is just so much easier to show examples rather than like creating the slides. It was a little bit of a challenge. I've done the best I can with the slides, but actually me giving you examples, showing you the pivots that I'm selecting, it's a lot easier for me to really show you how to use the tool, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a book. Like when you read things in a book, it's not overly helpful sometimes. And if you could actually, have someone showing you, like, e.g. you've got me to show you, I think it will make a lot more sense as I go through live examples, to be honest with you. But, I've explained it pretty well, I believe, hopefully. So basically what you need is 3 pivots, okay? And that's obviously a low, a high, and a higher low. Or obviously if you're bearishly, so if the market is bearish and you are going downwards, then it's a high, a low, and a lower high. So you say if you're uptrending and you're expecting higher prices, well, obviously you're going from a low high to higher low, okay? And if you're going down and the market structure is bearish, then you're going from a high, a low, and a lower high, okay? So first thing you need to understand. So obviously here we would be saying we're expecting higher prices. We're expecting price to extend to the upside. Okay. So the tool, to use the Fibonacci extension tool, all you need is 3 pivots. This tool is used for targets, naturally. Okay, so to use the tool, your first click is on the pivot low. Okay, so pivot low number 1. Second click will be on pivot high. Okay, and the third click is on the higher low. This will give you your Fibonacci targets. The most common for me are the 1 and 1618. The 1 is a common target if you are in a corrective price action. I hope this makes sense. By corrective price action, all I mean is more sideways movement, choppy price action. Okay, so when price is very choppy, for instance, almost range bound, just choppy corrective price action, well, you generally are just aiming for a one-to-one extension. Okay. And the 1618 for if the price action is impulsive. So if you start getting a trending market, for example, or you start getting a big impulse to the upside, well, then the 1618 is going to be your most favorite sort of target for the upside, because it started to trend upwards. Okay, so then you'll be looking for the 1618. Okay, so that's the difference of corrective price action, sideways trending markets, obviously going up in a clear direction. In choppy action, you're looking for the one-to-one. And even if you're going impulsively to the upside, it's not a bad idea or even a strategy to always be locking in profits at the one-to-one. Because the one-to-one extension, even if price is going up very quickly to the upside, you will generally at the very least see something like this. Okay, so let's say this was a massively impulsive move, you will still generally see something like that before you just end up going upwards. You will see some form of reaction at a one-to-one, e.g. taking profits. Okay, it's not a bad idea there, because even at the very least you can generally add on a little bit lower price that you've taken, or the worst is that this ended up hitting this and falling down, and then you're obviously very happy that you took profits there. Okay, so if price action gets above the 1618, it is very impulsive, and the next common target would be the 2618. Okay, so breaking through the 1618, in my opinion, with a close, because a lot of the time in crypto, you will see wicks onto the 1618, and that will be the high. Okay, that will be the high, the wick on the 1618. But if you start closing through this, it's showing you very, very, very much, it's a very big sign of strength. And, especially in crypto, that can be a quick movement up to the 2618. Okay, so that's another thing to bear in mind. Okay, so this was then the next slide that I wanted to do. Again, this is looking at it in terms of just counting waves. So this is wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. Okay, for an example, so you'd be going from the low to the high to the low. If you think this is moving up impulsively, then you would be looking for the 1618. Okay, so low, high, low, 1618. You could take profits at the 1. Again, I'm going to go through examples of this in a minute, because I feel for me it's a lot easier to explain it like this with examples. But yeah, here's one on ENG. Funnily enough, this is obviously moving up massively right now. But anyway, what we had is this obviously pulled back from this high. So this did pull back from this high to the weekly. And what we go for is point number 1, okay, the low. Point number 2 being the high. And then point number 3 being the low. And that's going to print out for you the 1 and obviously your extension numbers. And that is where you can be looking for targets. Okay, or alternatively, if you got the confluence there, you can be looking for an example, looking at a short entry there if you have other confluences. So let's say this was a weekly level on the one-to-one, where you're much more likely to get resistance there than if it's just the one-to-one on its own. Okay, I'm sure that makes sense. So here you can see on ENG, for example, price hits the one-to-one extension and turns around for the retracement. The price action on the coin is on the large time frame was very sideways and choppy. Okay. So another example here, and this is on Cardano. Again, this is actually an example. I've come back here to December. This was in 2018. Yes. And what you can see here is the same on the downtrend. So obviously here, moving up, we went from low to higher low, and we get the extension to the upside. On the example here on Cardano, as we can see, from high to low to the next high. And all I want to say is, as you'll see, I'll go through ENG at the end, by the way, but ENG has been very sideways and choppy. Okay, so the one-to-one extension, a good target. The difference on Cardano back in December was it was very much impulsive, and as you can see here, impulsive, you get the reaction at the 1-to-1, but ultimately wicking onto the 1618 before a reversal, okay, from high down to the low, up to the next, in this example, lower high. Okay, you obviously come down, you get a reaction off the 1-to-1. Ultimately, though, and this is what I really loved about this example, if I'm honest, look at the SR flip. So you hit the 1-to-1 and it found support. Okay, so let's just really highlight this, because I think this is an absolutely amazing example of just trading in general. So what you do is here, you come down, you hit the 1-to-1, you bounce off the 1-to-1. So what's happened here, to get a bounce, well, people have bought this, haven't they? People have bought that. All it's done is it's made some form of channel here. Okay, some form of channel. It's made a lower high, hasn't it? So it's gone lower high, lower high, lower high. So people have bought here. All it's done is put in a lower high and broken through the level. So then what happens? The people that have bought here to support that bounce have then seen their position go underwater. So as you retrace back into that level, what is most likely happening? The reason you get support and resistance is, well, the people that have bought here that were underwater, when they get the opportunity to come out at break even, well, these people that have bought here are now selling, e.g. creating you know, more of a selling pressure to come downwards. Okay, on top of that here, you also have the psychological 1000 level itself. You know, these psychological levels in trading are really, really big. Okay, they're really, really big. So here you obviously have support, flipping into resistance of the 1-to-1 before coming down to the 1618. Okay, before coming down to the 1618 extension from high to lower high, coming down to the 1618. That's where you ultimately reversed there and got a very, very big move to the upside. But what you see here is that region of support, old support, flipping to resistance on the 1-to-1, flipping back into support. So when it broke, coming back tested that before moving up very, very much, very, very big to the upside. Again, this coin was impulsively downtrending. Okay, so using the high, low, lower high, we can project targets for a short. Okay, as price is impulsive, the 1618 is a common target. Here you can also see the SR flip as mentioned off that 1-to-1 level. And that's the same with all fibs that I've done in the past. Like when you see support at the 618, if that 618 is lost, well, you can then imagine that 618 will flip into resistance. Okay, let me just explain that really quickly, because this is like really key in trading, if I'm honest, isn't it? So let's just put this on the CC, for example. Okay, if we see something like this, price coming down, bounces here, okay, but then ultimately loses the level. Well, what you would expect is that when price comes back and tests that, to act as resistance, because everybody that had maybe bought here, maybe they hadn't closed out for whatever reason, we got a bounce here, and then once you lose that level, when you back test it, you'd expect to see resistance. Okay, so that's obviously a nice example of Cardano here of how that support flips into resistance. Cool. And this was okay, so this was this morning on this is this morning on Bitcoin. I'll cover that one in a second. I will cover that one in a second. And this slide here, how can you, I'll take those questions in a second. I will take those questions in literally 2 minutes for you. This slide, debated putting this one in because it might add confusion, but here all we can see is 5 moves up. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, from standard way that you'd be doing this, isn't it? It would be from low to high to higher low. So connecting these 3, that's going to be your pivots you select, and you'd maybe have your 1-to-1 extension, your 1618 extension. Okay, what you can do for, I've added here, it's much more complex, but this is another way you can use the tool, is going from the low to the high, and instead of extending from this low, you can extend from the bottom of this low. Okay, that way you're looking for a 1-to-1 of the first impulse leg from the 4th low here. This is Elliott wave theory, if I'm honest, but yeah, that's another way you can use the tool. Again, this, as I've mentioned here, with the Fibonacci extension tool, you can use it to not only measure the most local pivots, so you can, instead of measuring this pivot here extended from the low, you can measure that line extended from this low and look for a relationship between the first impulsive move to the last, possibly last impulsive move up. Okay, so, well, I guess let's just explain what this tool is doing. That when we're selecting the low and the high, you're extending, you're taking the, let's say this is $100 move, okay, and you know that's $100 move. When we are extending from down here, a 1-to-1 is obviously $100 from this low. So let's say that's $0, that's $100, this is $50, okay. So if we are going $100 here, down $50, we're going from low to high to low. Well, the 1-to-1 extension is going to be $150, isn't it? Because that was a $100 move. Okay, making this very simple, but imagine it like this: that's a $100 move. You've retraced $50. A 1-to-1 of this move is $100, isn't it? Because it's $100 minus 50. You're about back at 50. A 1-to-1 is obviously up another $100. So when you're thinking of it like that, if you've got a impulsive structure like this, this is $100, okay, but instead of extending it from the low, take it from that $100 move, whatever that length would be, to start of your first move, and extend it from the fourth pivot low. And again, here you can be looking for the same price movement as was in the first impulsive move up. I hope that one hasn't confused people, because that is a little bit more, is much more complex, but this is a way that you can still use the tool. I would actually like to go through some examples, because for me, it's just too. It's just so much more easy, if I'm honest, to explain this with examples rather than fighting to try and explain it through the slides, if I'm honest with you. So here is an example that we have on Bitcoin, and this is an example from this morning, okay? So obviously today we moved up pretty nicely, if we're honest, haven't we? So what did we see on Bitcoin this morning? Well, prior to this morning, obviously we had that symmetrical triangle that obviously broke to the downside, okay? But what could we see from this symmetrical triangle that obviously broke down? Okay, what we can do here is from pivot high, okay, so the pivot high down to the pivot low, and let's say we were expecting it to break to the downside. So let's say obviously this has broke to the downside, hasn't it? So as you sort of broke down from this symmetrical triangle pattern that was going on, as you broke down from that, okay, where could you expect to see targets? Okay, so for how we could look for targets is from the last pivot high to the pivot low, up to the pivot high. As you see here, Bitcoin came down to the 1-to-1 extension, got a bounce. Okay, ultimately, what you see is a long strand of lower wicks before swing failure before a swing failure essentially on the low. So you bounce, you then go sideways for a good 8 hours. So an 8 hours of sideways before taking the low. E.g., anybody that was in a position over the last 8 hours is stopped out, and that's when you obviously got a massive impulse to the upside. Okay, so there's one example. Let's go through some other examples. Let's just go through Engine Coin, because this is the one that, oh, look at that. Okay, so we just hit the daily, by the way. That hadn't seen this by the time I actually had started this video. Yeah, so that's right off the daily. This is now, wow. Okay. Oh, absolutely amazing. Anyway, let's go through how we could go through an extension on this one. Okay. So if we are looking at this as now the start of an impulsive structure, okay, obviously we had been sideways. You have to think that this was an accumulation for a long time. We were going sideways there for 137 days. How many coins are in this pattern right now? I can name off the top of my head. Ontology was in this sideways accumulation and pumped very, very heavily. Theta is arguably still in the accumulation, and now we've just seen Engine Coin pump from the accumulation, okay? So all of these that are in this long sideways range are definitely getting follow through. That's undeniable. Okay, but if we're now looking at this as the start of an impulse, what we're doing from the low here, from the very low up to the high. So the first pivot high, I would go from low to high. You've broken this high here, never mind. From the low up to the high, down to the last low. Okay, look at that. That was not planned, actually. From the low, you see what I've done there? From the low to the high. Okay, let's just put this back on. Okay, actually no, I won't put that back on. From the low up to the high, down to the low here. Again, looking for the 1-to-1. As we can see, we clearly have just smashed through the 1-to-1. This has just gone 50% in a very short amount of time. But it's smashed through the 1-to-1, but where are we finding resistance? We just found resistance at the 1618. So then what can you start doing? You can start saying, well, here's 1. Here we've put in a 2. Here we'll work, then possibly a 3. Well, maybe we'll do something like this, yeah? So yeah, that's a pretty nice live example. Even when a coin is just literally moved 50%, well, you found resistance at your daily and 618 confluence, haven't you? Yeah, you literally have just found confluence there. And I will just I got to show this because this was the one that I was mentioning when people were asking yesterday what the best setup was. People, Igor specifically asked, "What's the best setup right now?" I said, "Has to be ENJ," and yeah, didn't expect it to bounce. So obviously, I didn't expect a 50% gain, but that was holding really, really nicely the weekly level. Okay, so you did get those bounces off of the weekly. Okay, so obviously came down, retested that weekly for a bounce. Here you obviously hold a higher low in the end, and yeah, great follow through, all stemming from that weekly. But yeah, I never expected that sort of price movement. But yeah, that's crazy. So let's go through some more examples. I'm just thinking off the top of my head what we can use. So what's been impulsive? Matic. Okay, let's Matic is a bit of a bad example. This just goes crazy impulsive. What's something that's gone external? Nope. Just thinking of a good example here. Okay, so we could use this as an example. Okay, this is Enigma coin. Okay, so again, we will just be selecting the 3 pivots of what I would say low, high, low, and then expansion to the upside. Okay, so let's say that we hadn't seen any of this move up. Okay, and all we've seen is this on Enigma. We've seen a rise to the daily, and let's say we want to buy the back test of the weekly. So we're going from low to high to the low at the time, being a weekly level. Let's say, obviously, we can know that it's moved up, but from low up to the high, up to what in that time is the higher low. Okay, you can see, well, this in the end has respected more the weekly levels than fibs. As you can see here, you kind of come up. Okay, this is on the 4-hour chart. You do hit the 1-to-1. You hit the 1-to-1 and you get a decline of about 8%. So it's a significant decline. But in the end, if we're honest, it has gone through the 1-to-1. Doesn't hit the 1618 either. In my opinion, is bouncing off the monthly there really clearly. Rejection, through the monthly, rejections really clearly off the monthly. And obviously earlier we had another pretty nice move again. But yeah, that's how you use it. Now let's just think of another tool, another one which has been impulsive. ZRX not so much at the moment, but we can just go through old examples, I suppose. Okay, so here. Let's see where we bottomed out. I actually have no idea off the top of my head, but let's say we were expecting ZRX to go heavily to the downside. Okay, so heavily to the downside, how can we be looking for targets? From the high, so a pivot high, down to the pivot low, up to the pivot high. Okay, you can see as actually this one doesn't help too much in terms of any support resistance of this. Okay, if I'm honest, not too great of an example. You can see a little bit. Actually, it found zero support around it. Zero support, if we're honest, around that one. But that's how we'd be looking for targets. Let me go through those questions a second. How can you predict the impulse move? It's annoying. I think I accidentally must have deleted a slide because I had a slide in here and I must have deleted it or not put it on. It's really frustrating. But I'm not sure. I definitely made this one. But basically what I was going to explain on it was that the question is how can you how can you predict that you're going impulsively? All I would say is there's never a way that you know that you're going to go impulsively. So how can you predict? It's more off of how's the coin sort of going. Okay, so what does that mean? So for instance, we get a big move to the upside. Let's say we get a really big move to the upside, really lots of good volume in it. We get a very impulsive move. Okay, so that first move up, very, very, very impulsive. Okay, really green. Everybody starts to get excited, or there's new interest within the coin, which I think Engine Coin will have that interest now. So let's say you get your first retracement. Okay, let's say it's a bit of a weak retracement, okay, and let's say that this comes down, for an example, in some sort of bull flag, okay, so we get a bull flag down here to the 382, okay, so let's say that this was on big increase in volume, and this decrease was on decreasing volume to the 382 fib, for example, well, the likelihood is, okay, never a guarantee, but the likelihood is that you will then bounce up again. Okay, so you'd be expecting this to go up again, wouldn't you? Okay, so how can you get targets for that? Very simply, from the low of the origin of the move to the high down to the next low. And if this is truly going to be impulsive, well, your target is going to be the 1618. Okay, that would be your general target. Again, what I would say is take profits at the 1-to-1. But ultimately, you'd be looking for the 1618. But nobody ever went broke taking profits at this 1-to-1, because there are times where it's going to do that and come down. And this is like a really big, okay, like channel, essentially. So, that's just one thing to bear in mind, that I would always be taking profits at this 1-to-1, okay, even if you think it's going up here, because there's a lot of times where it turns around there, even temporarily, before moving up. So yeah, the question of how can you predict an impulse move? You have to use the context of the move. You know, you have to go what's happened in the past. There's no way you can just go onto something absolutely randomly out of nowhere, a thing that you've never looked at before, and just be like, right, here, this is what's going on. You have to have like the context of the coin. So for example, if there was a really big pump to the upside, you're coming down on decreasing volume, well, you're going to expect another continuation to the upside, because that's your consolidation, okay? Impulse, consolidation, impulse, consolidation, impulse, consolidation, impulse, consolidation, until you reach an area of, you know, strong resistance, and then you start getting distribution and coming back down, okay? And then when you reach that real big resistance and you start coming down and you form that massive high rejection on high volume, okay, so then what are you doing? High to low to your lower high, and then you're looking for it to the downside, the absolute flip, aren't you? Okay, let me just delete all this a second, and let me just take that next question. Hey Daniel, a lot of Elliott waves to me last 2 days. How would you measure B wave if only the A is with this tool? Where would be the third pivot? Okay, so for example, the way that you do targets for Elliott waves, I think this is what you mean. So when you have to have the A and the B, don't you? So you have to have the A and the B, and your standard extension, all you aim for is the 1-to-1. So you go from the bottom of A to the top of A to the bottom of B, and all you aim for in this is a 1-to-1, because that's your standard extension. It's all you aim for is a 1-to-1 extension in ABC, okay? Bottom of A, top of A, bottom of B, all you aim for is the ABC. Is that what you mean? How would you measure B wave if only the A is with this tool? So you bottom of A to the top of A to the bottom of B. You'd only use the extension tool once you've got pivots A and B, unless you're using it for the subwaves of these, obviously. But once you've actually on the macro from the A to the top of B to the bottom of B, you need those 3 pivots before you use the tool. You just cannot use this tool with only 2 pivots. You have to have 3 pivots. Obviously, if you only have a low and a high, well, then that's where you use the retracement tool, isn't it? Okay, and then once you got your third pivot, okay, well, that's when you can then use the extension tool. Yeah? I hope that makes sense as well. So 2 pivots, you have to use the retracement. Once you've got that third pivot, you can use the extension. ZRX has made a nice 1-to-1 example from 30th to the 10th low. Let's see if I can find it. Honestly, there's absolutely countless examples. I'm sure that there's absolutely countless examples, if I'm honest with you. It's just like trying to actually find them live right now. I mean, let's just use this for an example. So let's just delete everything here, and we can see this is clearly impulsively moving down. So I'd say I'm gonna be looking for the 1618, wouldn't we? Because that's clearly impulsively going down in this section here on a smaller term time frame. That is very much moving down impulsively, isn't it? Okay, so we'll go from the high of the move to the low, up to the high. As you can see, actually, we're through the 1-to-1, and a 1618 would be your next relevant target. Funnily enough, here on the 1-to-1, you have done an SR flip of it where you actually shot straight through. So this, in my opinion, would be people that have bought here suddenly underwater straight away, but you got a quick bounce up. Everybody that bought to a 1-to-1 has then sold at the 1-to-1 break even, okay, and you know that increases the sell pressure. You end up moving down. Like for instance, if I'm day trading, that is what I do. So this is why I guess I think if I'm day trading and I'm buying the 1-to-1, if price smashes through it like this, because I use mental stops, I'm much you know, I would be in the position of an underwater position. And then when you get that opportunity of break even, you 100% always close out break even. Okay, you don't hold on thinking, oh, here we go, it's going higher. Just always close out break even. You have to be very strict when you're using mental stops. But this is like when you see people buying the one-to-one here, smashes straight through, get out break even. Well, there's a lot of sell pressure. You know, you end up going back down lower. And, you know, next target would be that 1618. I want to get everything back on my chart. So yeah, that was a random example there. Let's just click on. If someone wants to give me a random coin, I'll like literally go through examples on it. Will you be covering BTC on a quick count for today's move? Oh, that makes sense. Let me go through Bitcoin. Okay, so let me go through Bitcoin, and I will go through some extensions. Why not? So this was actually a slide that I made earlier of Fibonacci extension confluence of why I took a long. As you all know, like this morning, I did enter into that day trade long position, obviously before this rise. And this is when I was looking at this morning, the confluence that we had for a reasoning for this long. As I show you all actually the harmonic that we had going on here, by the way. So this is again is think back. Okay, think back a second to the Fibonacci extension, Fibonacci expansion video. Okay, so where was the confluence here? Okay, from high to low to high, one-to-one extension. Okay, and then for the expansion, low to high, we go on to the expansion, and that's the confluence. Okay, so this for me was a confluence of this. Okay, so the one-to-one on, really it obviously bottomed out at the 1212. Okay, 1272. Okay, obviously the swing failure pattern as well. Because I was entering into my longs a little bit higher, as I like updated in the trading sheets. I wanted to wait for a trend change, but obviously what we saw there was the confluence, and this is what I think straight away. So as soon as I see the 1272 expansion being here, I always think harmonics, if I'm honest with you, like always in my mind is straight away harmonic patterns. Okay, and how similar also the price action was from the 7,400 real big rise to what we were seeing here. It's the exact same pattern. So this is a shark harmonic, this is a shark harmonic, and this is a shark harmonic. So you literally got three shark harmonics, and this is all about Fibonacci expansions, isn't it? So what's really, really nice, okay, is actually I'll just show you this really, really quickly, by the way. From the high of B to the low of C, have a guess where you topped out. Okay, expansion 1618 to the absolute more or less dollar there. So that was from high to low of B to C, 1618. And here it's about the 2. So from high of B to the low of C, you come up to around the 2. And you know, with me thinking how similar this was to 7,400, if you look at 7,400 and where, you know, this one topped out from the high of B to the low of C, that also topped out at the 2 to 2. Okay, so really, 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 really similar price action. And obviously this was this morning before it got the pump. I said, oh, this really reminds me of 7,400. Everybody waiting for this 7,000 Fibonacci level. I do believe I'm going to miss out. And yeah, I guess, you know, they did miss out. And that was my post about it this morning, where I just favoured this being in. And I will cover that this count now a second of well, essentially there's two ways to count this. This is still up in the air of whether this moves up for higher levels and we put in a C, or whether we just head down from here. Obviously, if we're looking at it in terms of a fractal, okay, if we're looking at it in terms of a fractal of what's happened last time, obviously on this rise, big rise out of nowhere, and it just gave it all back. If that's to happen again, well, we know very, 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 very simply, price really should not get above 7,650. Okay, if it gets back above there, then it's much different than the last fractal, but unless that happens, we will just expect this to fizzle out, if I'm honest. So don't hold me to this Elliott wave count, because I'll change literally like this. But yeah, if this is you know, correct, then looking at it more or less in terms of coming down to put in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the A, up for the B, down for the C, working on a 5, 3, 5. So that was partly some of the reason why I also was a little inclined. Obviously, I never got a full position, by the way, never got a full position filled. But for me, my long was still about 26 Bitcoin, so about 200 grand. For the way I trade positions, that for me is not like a massively large position. I know for some people that's a big position, but for me it was like not a full position. But nevertheless, still decent, obviously. But yeah, I'm looking at this possibly of this moving up for the A, that being the B, up for the C, up to finish the wave 4 around the 8,000 level. But at this moment in time, I guess it's you're more likely to class it as the fractal from 7,400 because of how similar it was to pump. Also, the way open interest has gone, it's really, really, really similar to this. It's just really, really similar to this, and we all know what happened. It just gone down. So, just a bit cautious that this could happen, if I'm honest. But yeah. On BAT, how much importance would you place on the last 4-hour close? I'll take that at the end. I mean, in case it expanded or running flat, is there a way to measure the expansion of the B wave? I'll take that at the end. I prefer to do questions. Well, I guess that's kind of about Fibonacci expansion. So, in case of an expansion of a running flat. Okay, so what I like to do is use this. Okay, so I got one called flats, where you can be looking, obviously, if you're extended to the up or down side, whatever it may be. I like to look for the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 6, 1, 3, 8, 2, 1, 4, 1, 4. Obviously, to the upside, 2, 3, 6, 3, 8, 2, negative 4, and 4. This is so much Elliott wave theory, though, if I'm honest with you. But you can add on this template and copy my template of how I trade flats. But this is like for a totally different lesson, if I'm honest, because that is really, really, really only Elliott wave theory. But that's what I use for trading flats. But the question was, I mean, in case of an expanded or running flat, is there a way to measure the expansion of the B wave? Well, I guess so. For instance, let's say you go A, B, and you expand to the 1, 2, 3, 6. Well, then you can be looking for like a 1, negative 4, 1, 4. So you got like Fibonacci relationships, but this is kind of really off topic. But yeah, you do get fib relationships between expanded and obviously when you got your running flats. Yeah, those are the fibs that I would use. Okay, those are the fibs that I would use. But to explain flats, it will be in the Elliott wave video, if I'm honest with you all. Please can you share examples on your favorite stocks? Yeah, let's go through. I want to go through examples 100%. So let's go through Apple, because this is pretty nice. So let's just go through Apple and some expansions. Okay, so here, can you see straight off the bat how we are looking? I think for me, there's only 3 pivots I would use for this. So which 3 pivots, price is going up, which 3 pivots here am I selecting to get price to the upside? Where am I going from to get my price predictions for the upside? I'll give you 10 seconds to think of which 3 pivots am I selecting to get price targets for the upside here on Apple. Okay, hopefully you got the right answer. I'm going from the low to the high to the higher low here. Why am I selecting these 3 pivots? Little bit of Elliott wave theory again, and this tool is so related to Elliott wave, but you're looking at it like this. You're really looking at it like this. Sorry to bring Elliott waves into it because I don't really want to, but that's kind of the reason why I'm looking at those 3 pivots. It's number 1, number 2, number 3, and this is all part of the same. This is all part of the same rise, in my opinion. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could put on something like this, couldn't you? Yep. Ooh. Like this. Okay, so when we got something like that, okay, let's just delete this channel a second, and we can go from low of this up to the high, up to the higher low. As you can see here on Apple, you did get reactions in and around the 1-to-1. You have to remember there's billions and billions of pounds that go through this stock. So you got a little bit of up and down and around the level, but you can see the reactions. Again, I'm not primarily using this tool on its own. That's really important to remember. I'm not using this on its own. But you know, you've got other confluences around there, but nevertheless you've come up to that 1-to-1. You've seen sort of price targets. You know, if you were longing, let me just show you, by the way, when you go from low up to the high, have a guess what you bounced off of. I mean, this is Apple. This is like the biggest stock. Well, not actually the biggest, but nevertheless one of the most biggest stocks in the world. That is from low to high, hitting the 618 and getting a bounce. So if you bought it at 618 at $170, $171 for the front run, you know, if you buy that 618, are you unhappy selling $243? I really don't think you are. If I'm honest, I don't think you're unhappy about that. You know, nearly 50% gain, which is crazy for the short amount of time that it was. If you're taking profits here, again, this is a take profit target. If you're taking profits after that, you're really not unhappy. Obviously, it's continuing higher, where you next could be looking for around $288. But yeah, look at that. And then if we put this obviously on negatives, okay, negative, we hit the 236. Oh, look, so then you've obviously got your -1 on the 1618, but the negative 618, you're currently bouncing on and around here, aren't you? You know, one of the biggest stocks in the world, amazingly bounced off of there, the you know, 618. Just amazing. It really is amazing. But yeah, that's Apple. Let's go through another random example. If someone wants to give me another random stock or coin or anything, I'll go through some examples using this tool. Would you always add in negative fibs when you draw your extensions as well? Apple, for example. Yeah, 100%. Like, you can always use the confluence, okay? So, like, when we're looking for targets, okay, I would have that, and I would also have this negative fib pulled at the same time. Okay, so I'd definitely have both of them on my chart. If you can see here, you don't really get anything lining up to the top, but this is always going to line up more or less. But here, you know, there's no confluence between these levels. What we can also add is a bit of an extension of this low here. This is the one I would add. Okay, expansion of this low. Okay, so here you actually get the 2, and I would also add this one. Yeah, so you can see you're nothing to actually match this exact high, but you can see the resistance that is around here on this 260 level. Okay, but really, you know, I think we'll push up to 290. You know, this is my target, so I'm looking for 290. I do believe that this might, well, unless this is the top now, if you know, it's absolutely possible it could be the top now, but I'm in profits on this. If I get stopped out, I'm stopped in profits, but I'm still expecting this to push on to higher levels. And I did get questions about the stock market today, and sorry I didn't reply earlier, but I just was busy. But I also am expecting the stock market to also push on to all-time highs. I don't think we've reached an overall top. I'm still expecting higher prices. So with the market in general, obviously expecting higher prices on the stock market, and naturally I'm still expecting higher prices on Apple, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, you can see the confluence sits around there at 290. There is a lot. Okay, and then if you start taking swings on more recent price action, so you can again go from low to high of this low, nothing coming in. Okay, what you can do is also low to high to a secondary low. Remember, and there you go. So that one nailed it. So here, so you see what I done there. So like I mentioned earlier in this one, that you can start taking the first impulse from other lows. More complex. This is more complex because it's much more nuance in terms of subjectivity. But here I've gone the length of the first impulse and extended from a secondary higher low. Okay, and that could have gave you a target of around $266. That one is much more. I use the word complex, but in subjectivity, there's a lot more subjectivity involved when you look at it like that. But then you can see 266. Ticker ABC. Oh, no idea which one it is, if I'm honest with you. I never ever have traded marijuana stocks. I'm not sure what ABC is. I can do US oil though. US oil. Okay, well, all I'd say is US oil is this really range bound. Okay, so the extension tool is not the best when you're in a range. I should have added that in, and that's really good that you've picked US oil. Like, this is not the best tool for range bound markets. Okay, there are much better tools. Okay, I can actually see this channel off the top of my head, but yeah, there's much better tools when you're in a range, and really here you're just sideways range bound. So you know what, Apple, where I just use the extension tool, that's really, really good. But when you're at sideways range bound, I really would say that this is not the best tool to use. It's not going to be very helpful. Yeah, it's really not going to be very helpful, if I'm honest. This is so range bound. Like, if we're honest though, you can come down to lower time frames. So if we're on a lower time frame here and we're coming, and this is impulsive on the lower term time frames, isn't it? Okay, so on the impulsiveness of the lower term time frames, obviously in an overall range, but low to higher low. Oh wow. Okay, so here you come up, you've got some reactions around the 1-to-1. You actually got through the 1-6-1-8 in the end, topped out at the 2-to-2 extension. Obviously though, on that 2-to-2, you're coming up to, in my opinion, instead of bouncing off this, you just really clearly hit, you know, like a really big resistance level. But here possibly consolidation under resistance, get back through it. But yeah, that's yeah, this tool is much better on an impulsively moving market, like on the well, I rephrase, because this is obviously impulsive on the lower term time frames. In the grand scheme of things, it's sideways, so you can't be looking at this like going or low to higher low. And well, the 1-to-1 is just top of the, you know, arguably the top of the range, so it's not like I'd be looking for the 1-6-1 extension, because it's proven nothing to you to aim for that high. But then at the same time, on these lower term time frames, yeah, well, absolutely, it's acceptable to like use it here. For instance, what's something? Well, I guess ENG. We should get. Well, I've done that extension, haven't I? The question was, someone else had another question of ENG. Where would you look for an entry point if you're not in ENG right now? Really difficult to get involved in this after a 50% pump. I'm not saying this moves over, but I am saying it's really hard to get involved if you are not actually in it. It's really hard to get involved, if I'm honest with you. If you're not in the coin, then you're really struggling for an entry, because it's definitely possible to move up higher. I really think we can move up higher. I think that this can get 100%, because I think there's like hardly any resistance up to this next weekly. But in terms of like an entry, I mean, your best entry is clearly 890 sats. Do you get that retracement? Possibly 890 sats would be the best, definitely the best entry you can get. 100%, I would say. Your 890 sats is amazing, but if it comes down that low, I'm not too sure. Obviously now you've got the daily, so I was scalping this one before I came, and I know you got resistance at around 1,000 sats. So if you got a SR flip off of that, okay, so you can see here there was movement around 1,000 sats. Doesn't really look. It's incredible volatility, absolutely incredible. But I mean, yeah, if come back down to the daily, 1,025 sats to 1,000 sats, where you got a pocket here of a possible entry. I mean, scalping, you can enter this all the time. So for example, if we were scalping this, well, where's the 1-to-1? So from high down to the low, up to the, look at that. So there you go. This is the best, really good example actually. So if you wanted an entry, there is an entry from high of the move down to the low, up to the lower high. Okay, there you hit the 1-to-1. And you just have to remember, there's so many people interested in this coin right now. You get reactions a lot of the time. There's an 8% move off the 1-to-1 there. So that's pretty crazy actually. Let me just see. Okay, so you didn't have anything, but yeah, there's the 1-to-1 coming into play on that coin. Let me just click on a random coin icon. Oh, actually, this is a bad example because it's not impulsive. Ontology. So when Ontology moved, let's go over this. So Let's say we're expecting lower prices on ontology then. Okay, so we could go from the high down to the low, down to the lower high. We could say that there should be support coming in at around 765 sats. Okay, so 765 sats is the one-to-one of this extended from here. So that could be a possible target, 765 sats. Raven coin is moving impulsively, isn't it? So it's just like these coins that went sideways for so long and then are all starting to pump now. It's not the best example. If anyone... Okay, we got an example here actually. So this is Phantom. Okay, so let's say that we didn't see this moving up impulsively and we were looking for a target. Let's say we bought the low of this channel, okay, which was the Champions channel, funny enough. So here we got the Champions channel. Let's say we buy the Champions channel. Okay, and all we're seeing is this. Okay, we're buying this, hits the 6-6. Okay, how are we looking for targets? Okay, from the low to the high, down to the higher low. Okay, you can see actually you come up to the one-to-one, okay, and you get rejected again to the downside. 1618 sits at around 200 sats. That's going to be a big take profit if it hits. This one is great because then actually from the to get these pivots from then the low to the high, you come and hit to 618 again. So if we are expecting this to move up again, just like it done from here to here, hit the 618 or the golden pocket and moved up here from low to high, we've found support again. So if this is going to move up again, well, we can get from low to higher low. Oh, look at that. That's amazing actually. That the one-to-one, okay, this one-to-one of this move is the 1618 of this move. Okay, so this 1618 is this one's one-to-one extension. You've got to say that 203 sats is really big resistance. That's if it does this. That 203 sats is going to be big resistance. From 203 up to 210, that's $7 sat region there. You're going to say is pretty big because you've got the one-to-one of here and you've also got the 1618 of there on top of each other, which is just amazing actually how that's worked out. But then look how much it likes the 618. So it's bounced there and it's bounced there. Oops. If I've missed some questions, you'll have to say. Yeah, Phantom BTC. Funny enough, someone said Phantom, but yeah, look at that. That's really good on Phantom. Cool, no worries, Mike. Thank you. What is your belief or reasoning for why fibs work so well across the markets? In my opinion, well, I think this is just how the market moves. If I had to give a reason for the way the market moves, I say the market moves from Fibonacci. Like I guess I cannot say 100%, but possibly like market makers, you got the algorithms also involved. The Fibonacci is just so ingrained in the market. Every single day I'm getting trades from fibs and it's just absolutely amazing. I guess I cannot say 100% why it moves, but my belief or my reasonings for why it moves is just, this is just how the market moves. The market moves through fibs. Obviously you get impulses, declines, sideways ranges, okay, which is obviously during your decline or consolidation. The market is just moving naturally, okay? So the market is moving naturally, and as we know, Fibonacci, okay, is found throughout nature. Fibonacci is found throughout life. It's a very, the 618, for example, 618 on Phantom, this coin that was requested, has hit 618 bounce, 618 bounce. Why 618? Well, 618 is a fair value. Okay, so if somebody has missed out on this move, you get an impulse to the upside. Okay, you get an impulse to the upside. Do you want to buy after a 2% retracement? Well, no, you don't, do you? Because you're thinking, well, I'm not buying up. Price was down at 100 sats 2 days ago. I'm not going to buy 168 sats, am I? I'll wait for this to come down. Price comes down. Gets a little bit of a bounce. Maybe people have found interest here, but eventually you get down to the 61% ratio. This is a ratio where you can say, you've seen a bounce from 100 sats to 200 sats, and you're thinking, well, I'm not buying 200 sats, but as it comes down and down and down, it reaches this area of value, of what I call this like a value sort of region, where people here are not selling anymore. It's declined too much from the high to see this as a good sell, and people that missed out on the opportunity to buy here are saying to themselves, well, it's very unlikely I get another opportunity, but this has declined enough now to be, okay, this is a good buy, this is a good value. So the market, moves up, declines to a good area of value where there's no more people. They don't see the point in selling 135 sats when you were 160 sats a day ago, and people are not waiting for 118 sats because they feel they've missed the move. They're more comfortable buying higher. This is a good area of value. There's nobody left selling, there's more people wanting to buy. Market moves up again until it reaches an overextended, overbought price, and then you get another decline. Well, people are not buying at 184 sats because you were sat at 133 sats one day ago. You come down to a 61% retracement. People here are not selling because it was here one day ago. They are, comfortable to buy a higher low because the market moves up like this. Again, you hit the 1618, you move up again. I mean, for me, it's just the natural flow of the market. You just get these natural flows. There's no like reasoning behind it per se. Just that, market generally moves like this, and this, you can, to be honest, you can give me any stock and I will do this ABC for you, because I'm sure, although I've never traded it, I kind of need to know the name. What do you type in? Just ABC. Let's just type in this then. Cool. So this one. So I've literally never traded this. Oh my god. Oh, it really looks horrible, but yeah. So low, high. Oh wow, look at that. So yeah. Well, there you go. I've literally never traded this in my life, and I'll add that on so you can see. But I've just gone there from the high down to the low, up to the higher low. So pivot 1, pivot 2, pivot 3. Never traded it in my life, but you can see it come down to around that region, around to the 1-to-1, and it got a bounce of 40% in what, like a day. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? That's literally pretty amazing. Something that had declined. This is an absolutely crazily big decline. This had declined 77%. You hit the 1-to-1 extension and you bounce 40% in a day. I mean, what can I say? Never heard of it in my life, but you cannot say that doesn't work. That's amazing, isn't it? Literally 40% one day of trading on this stock. Yeah, so there's ABC. I'll go through some more examples. Ren had a nice extension target, so let's do Ren. I haven't traded Ren in such a long time. I have no idea how this is going. Let's move our way from the lows. From low to high to low, hit the 1618. So look at that. I mean, I don't even trade this, if I'm honest with you. But here, you hit the 1618. So from low, see what I selected? From the low to the high here, to the higher low, where you see the reactions that you get around the 1. So you're hitting the 1 here, you're getting reactions. Literally hit the 1 by a wick, you get the retracement, and that's why I say, you can take profits there. It's not it's a 5% downwards move. Okay, eventually though, you come up, don't you? You come up to the 1618, where you literally are wicking onto the 1618, and there you get a rejection of 17%. Okay. In the end, though, obviously it moves sideways for an extended period of time, and this would be the next one that I would have looked at the time, from high to lower high. A little bit around. Again, you're going to be using other tools. Every tool that I've covered thus far we can be using as confluence, but around the 1-to-1 here, nothing, no crazy confluence there, but or no, not confluence, but no, a little bit of reactions. I guess 1-to-1. Here you bounce 14%, and before eventually coming on, going around the level, and big SR level around it. You can see, can't you? There's a lot of buys and sells going on around that level. Bitcoin heading down. Yeah, Bitcoin is heading down. Yeah, it's heading down. I think that this fractal for me is just, it was absolutely picture perfect this morning. So it's just like, yeah, I wouldn't be overly surprised for it to just do this. But I don't know, from this fractal to this fractal is so similar. Also, the open interest like massively fell off. This was a short squeeze. I had a debate with someone today that said this wasn't. This was a short squeeze. You know, in this consolidation period, the open interest was rising and rising and rising and rising. Okay, so open interest rising, you get the move down, you get a straight rip to the upside, you rip up, open interest fell off a cliff. So that's obviously liquidations, etc., happening, people closing out their positions. It was a short squeeze. So it's hard not to say that this could come down. Okay, obviously, well, you got around 7,400 support, so that's still in play at the moment. $15 off. 7,400, 7,350 is a support. You lose 7,350, the odds are much more likely that you're coming probably down to much lower levels. But you know, you still got 7,350, 7,400 as support at the moment. Lose that, this is really, really, really bearish. But it's got a little bit of hope at the moment, but its fractal is so similar. Daniel, can you share your watch list? Can you share your watch list on Discord? Oh, right, yeah. Share this. Yeah, I'll do that for you now. Oh, I need to remove those last two. Well, you know that, don't you? They're not my watch list, but I got stopped out at 159 sats, Phantom. Oh no, mate, that's not. Let me just see. How did you get stopped out on Phantom? 159 sats. How did you get stopped out? Oh right, so you were not buying a 618, so I guess I have no idea what you done, but I guess you must have bought up around here, and then you got stopped on the retrace. Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate, I guess. Well, you got the monthly coming into play, 167 sats if you want to be aggressive. Obviously, that would have been your best at 152, but that's unlikely you get another retest. Yeah, around the monthly 167. I'd say you want to wait out for this daily close. This has moved today, well, in the last 2 days, 10%. So you're probably going to consolidate around this monthly again. But, well, look at Bitcoin. It's literally dropping right now. So if this volatility maintains in Bitcoin, then alts are more likely to struggle. Okay, so they are much more likely to struggle. And this fractal probably is going to play out. That's really, really bearish, actually, that we're coming down to this low. If I'm honest, that's not great for any Bitcoin bulls. That is clearly really looks as if that is a short squeeze and you're coming down lower. Okay, that's what I would say at the moment. That was a short squeeze and you're heading down. And it really looks like this fractal is going to play out. Daniel, can you share? Yeah, so I've shared that watch list. Is there an Adam and Eve bottom on ABC? No, not really. It's too early to say. You got a potential, I guess, but really you want to see it come down like that. You got potential, but there's nothing really Adam and Eve-ish. If you start coming up and taking the highs again, it's potential. You got potential, but that's all it is potential. But yeah, you've got a potential Adam and Eve there happening. Can you chart NEO, which is the Chinese version of Tesla? Absolutely. Oh, Bitcoin is like falling off a cliff right now. Literally it is. So yeah, on this one, this is pretty decent. So all I'd say is, firstly, you got this gap. Literally, Bitcoin is falling off a cliff. So you got this gap here, which I would say is going to be a resistance, just like Bitcoin. So Bitcoin filled the gap. So when we were talking about gaps, Bitcoin literally filled this gap, and that was, now we can clearly say, the high. So it filled the gap. Okay, moves down. Okay, when we come back to this one that I was on for you, just be aware that those gap fills generally are going to lead to downwards moves. But there you can see the gap was filled. Well, this gap has not been filled yet, but that's nevertheless going to be a resistance level, just so you're aware. Very likely you've got another gap here, but yeah, that's your biggest gap clearly. So around 271 is going to be a resistance level. But what you can be doing is, from the low to the high to the low. You got nothing really at the 1618, a little bit of a decline there. Well, I guess in percentage terms that's going to be pretty big, 27%. Coming up to the 2 to 2 and getting another decline, and again that's actually to the dollar. What you could do on this one, like one tactic that I would use for this one, is from low to the high. From the last high, if it clears that gap, that's the next pull that I'll be looking at, from this low to this high to this low. If it clears that gap, then you'd be looking at for 923, 371. Yeah, those are the main pulls that I would do. Low, high, low, low, high, low. If you wanted to, you could pull this one again, but it's going to require getting past that gap. And you got on this low, high, low, you got the confluence of that gap fill of around. Yeah, that 276, that's going to be resistance. It's definitely going to be resistance. Oh, definitely not the right word, but it's likely it's going to be resistance. Okay. Nice short, mate. Nice short. Yeah, if you were short, then absolutely that is. Oh wow, it literally just hit. Oh my wow, that is absolutely crazy. Oh Jesus. Oh holy Christ. That is literally just pumped and absolutely dumped. Wow. And you took the low. Oh wow, that is absolutely crazy. Only in crypto, literally only in crypto are you going to see this. Move up, fill the gap, come back down, take the lows, back up. That is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy volatility. Yeah, RIP anyone with a tight stop loss, literally. Live chart, I kind of want to go and trade this if I'm honest with you, but well, I guess what we can be looking at is, well, that is really crazy. In terms of extension, let's see what it hit. Okay, so oh wow, so your 1-to-1 extension of that was actually the lows. Well, I do just think that this right now is really crazy. If I'm honest, like that is insane to literally pump and dump like that. It's really crazy. Yeah, it's really crazy. 13 million, 11 million liquidations. Well, your liquidations are not too high. Well, you still got 10 million liquidations there. But yeah, it's not overly high considering the percentage of that move. You got some support coming in. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. If someone wants to give me another alt though, hasn't taken the low on BFX. Many alts are moving up while BTC pumps. Yeah, but you'd be losing so much USD value right now. ETH moving up, Litecoin moving up. I guess, yeah, they are actually, aren't they? Well, the majors. I kind of just want to do some more examples for you all. You can't really get an example of this pool here, EOS. Okay, so we have a... Well, this doesn't look like it's going to have... so what we could do is, let's say we're expecting more downside on EOS, for example. So from high to low to lower high. Oh, it did actually. It wicked onto the 1-to-1. So it wicked onto the 1-to-1 there and got a pretty decent reaction off of it. And so that was, you see, high to the low to the lower high, down onto the 1-to-1. Let's just keep going through some examples. So, yeah, that's not going to have any nice examples there. Wabby. Let's see. So let's take this impulsive structure here. So when we saw that really big impulse to the upside, okay, we can go from low of it to the high, down to the low. This was not pre-planned either, but here you can see it hit the 1-to-1 extension and, you know, very much fell off a cliff. So that's why if you were aiming for the 1618, well, you know, if you took profit at the one, well, you're definitely not going to be unhappy because that has hit the 1-to-1 and not made new lows. But that, nevertheless, you can see the importance of the 1-to-1 extension there. Let's do XLM. I know XLM had a really big pump, didn't it? So of the low of that pump that XLM had to the high, to the low, actually that's not the really big pump that XLM had. There was a bigger pump than that. It's this one here. Oh, actually you don't have any, you can't really get extensions off of this. It's straight up. I guess you could have off of these pivots from low to high to the low. So look at that then. Okay, this is a random pivot, I think, but from low, okay, you see what I've done there? From low to higher low. 1-to-1 extension, lost. Well, rejection. Okay, so ultimately it pulled back, didn't it? So you went up, down, hit the 1-to-1 extension, bull flag ultimately, before massive pump straight up to the 2618. So you went straight through the 1618, the 2, and you topped out at the 2618, didn't you? If you pull this along, you can see you topped out again at the 2618. But yeah, that's a nice example of low, high, higher low. You get the reaction at the 1-to-1 where you get a little bit of a bull flag or pennant before breaking up straight through all major targets, straight through the 2618. But that's cryptocurrency for you, literally. Do another random example, I guess waves. Trying to see where we could see a random example. Okay. Now let's just do this bit area here. We see like a pretty impulsive move up, and then, you know, here obviously this is a bit like Bitcoin. Impulse gave it all back. Impulse, more of a sideways consolidation. So let's say we were buying the sideways consolidation from low to higher low. Okay, well, you don't really get, well, you get a bit of a reaction at a 1-to-1 or movement around the 1-to-1, but ultimately you get to the 1618, a wick down again, so you get a reaction there off the 1618, ultimately pushing up again, no reaction, well, in between there's no actual fib that you bounce off of, but you got, okay, so there you got this there. Okay, so actually you can see why you topped out there. It's been a pretty key resistance level. No idea. But yeah, so it's not like you have to always see exact levels and hit it sort of thing. But it's good for just like general targets, confluences, like adding it into everything else that I've done so far. Last example I'll do here, from low to high, low to high to higher low. Oh, that's pretty nice as well. So this is Stratus. Okay, this is Stratus coin. Low, high, higher, low. You can see the reactions here at the 1-to-1. 1-to-1 hit, bouncing around, coming up, hit the 1618. Exactly. That's a pretty much an exact one right there. So off the 1-to-1, you got a downwards move of, about 3%. Here you hit the 1-to-1, move down about 7%. Before ultimately, look at the SR that you get off of this level, by the way. So off of the 1618, you've got quite a lot going on there in that region, haven't you? Resistance, support, resistance, SR flips, drop down, resistance, falls down from that SR flip off the 1618. But you can see here, reactions at the 1-to-1, reactions at the 1618 before being the top of the 2-to-2. Okay, so the 2-to-2 wicks there. I'll do one example of going down just so that fully makes sense to the downside as well. So let's use a coin that you can actually short. So let's do an example on, let's say, let's do an example on Cardano. I've done it Cardano, haven't I? Oh, let's just do Cardano at a random point. Okay, so let's say that we were looking to trade from this low to this high to this higher low, and this is in June. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on, but from the high to the low to the lower high. Okay, so we do see bits of movement going on around this, don't we? So high, low, lower high. Okay, the 1-to-1 extension comes in here. So if we zoom in here, we zoom in, you can see the reactions that happened around the 1-to-1. It's fair to say it has been a pretty relevant level there. So we obviously hit it here, you get a bounce of 8%. Hit the 1-to-1, 8%, then becomes a very big SR level. Lots and lots of movement around this. And obviously Cardano is still, well, from there, as we all know, right now it's just going sideways as well. But yeah, there's an example of high, low, lower, high, and 1-to-1. Obviously movement before dropping down again to lower levels. And I'll do literally one more example of a movement down. And let's do this as an example. So this is Litecoin. From the high, obviously monthly rejection, down to where we found weekly support, to the high of that move. Okay, not the best, but this has obviously dropped off. I remember this wasn't too long ago, where it obviously dropped off and done that really big, like 15% move down, and then just went sideways for such a long time, ultimately eventually coming down again to obviously here not really good reaction around the one. Well, there's a lot of sideways movement that happened around the 1.1618, got nothing really bottoming out of the 2. I would reckon I'd be able to find better confluence of why this bounced here rather than this, if I'm honest with you. I think there's a better answer I could give, but I don't want to cover it for too long. But there we can see a 2-to-2 in the end, got the bottom, okay, before obviously is coming back down to it right now, where we could look at it like this, from high to low, lower high. Okay, so that's more like it. This is more like it for a nice example of what's happening at the moment on Litecoin. High, low, lower high, and there you did hit a 1-to-1, and you did get some bounces off of there. So you got a bounce as soon as you hit it, down through, and actually bouncing again right now. So yeah, I hope I've done enough examples there to cover questions. Does anybody have any other questions? I would say what you could do is from high to lower high. Yeah, look at that. So you don't really get a reaction after 1.1618 hit, captures it. That's a pretty... It's not a massive move, but nevertheless it captures it. But that's basically the process. You need 3 pivots, okay? A high, a low, and like a lower high, okay? I would say Elliott wave theory does help. So obviously once I've done the Elliott wave series, coming back to this video would probably be beneficial, because the way that I would look at it is like, you know, I'd think, oh, here's wave 1, here's wave 2, well, obviously here's wave 1, here's wave 2, or this is wave 3, for example, or this is A, this is B, this is C. You know, that is what going through my mind, if I'm honest, when I'm picking the pivots. But obviously you can use this tool with no Elliott wave theory, as I've kind of shown you, I hope. So let me know if that helped. If you have any other questions, particularly about Fibonacci, I'm more interested in Fibonacci questions. If you have any questions, if you have no questions, I presume you have fully understood how to use this tool. Obviously, it's not overly complex, the tool. It's just the nuances, I guess, of the little features of the tool. Okay, nobody seems to have any other questions on on the tool, so I will move forwards. Yeah, nobody seems to have any other questions about the tool, if I'm honest. So I presume everybody has fully understood how to use that. Okay, and then people are interested in Bitcoin, nevertheless, obviously. So I guess Bitcoin after this, I mean, it's a little bit difficult when you've obviously done a full-on stop raid of those lows. You have literally stop raided those lows. Did you do it on Binance? Okay, so you didn't do it on Binance. It was only on BitMEX. Okay. Nevertheless, you have stuck the lows on not taken them on other exchanges. It's probably more likely to head down again. So you're more likely to move. I would say I'm more leaning bearishly, I would say. Unless that is the low overall put in, but you have to be leaning more bearishly, I would say, after the rise that I know the open interest dropped heavily on the rise. It was fairly obvious that it was a short squeeze. Obviously, you had the potential, like you back did here at the 5-0 pattern, but that has clearly been invalidated. I really think, well, the macro is obviously clearly down as well. You're more likely to make money shorting than you are longing, let's be honest, because the macro is just down, okay? So when you look at it like that, obviously you can adjust this in slightly different ways, but I do like this, okay? Well, I mean, I favour downside, if I'm honest with you, and I'm looking obviously on the medium term for around 5,000-ish. I would like to see around that 5,000 level, the bottom of these lows, is what I would like to see. 5,160. This is the thing though, like, I definitely believe that this has been a bearish sort of well, this is really bearish. The way that you move up and you just have dumped like that, it's hard to say it's bullish, if I'm honest with you. It's really hard to say that it's bullish. This move really just seems like this move was to fill the gap, and as we all know over on here, like we filled the gap. As soon as we filled that gap, we've just dumped heavily. So it really feels like this move was designed to fill this and move on right now, if I'm honest with you. That's what I would say. And if that's the case, well, then we're going to be expecting lower prices. It's a little bit of a spanner in the works that you took the low. So you might say to yourself, you might want to wait now if you're in zero position to go back below the low. But I would say in the grand scheme of things, on a bigger macro perspective, you gotta favor downside potential. You gotta just favor downside. Okay, you got to favor moving lower here, in the grand scheme of things. Okay, and actually off of that, okay, so you did hit as well. So you hit the monthly there. Obviously, you hit the top of the old channel as well. Actually, funny enough, yeah. So I guess on the bigger scheme, on the macro, I favor downside. Obviously, let's go over the Elliott wave count, because this is going to have to be adjusted. That's obviously not going to be moving up for 5 waves, but you have to remember, like, Elliott waves for me are only a confluence. I never trade primarily off of them, okay? But this would have to be readjusted because we've just done 5, 3. I mean, this is pretty difficult to work with. Pretty difficult to work with, but we could say that this did. It's difficult because it didn't take it on all exchanges, but nevertheless, it's obviously took it on this exchange, and I need to put some thought into that. I don't want to do it on the fly, if I'm honest. But obviously, that count has been, well, not to say we can't come up that high, but that count of the triangle for the C, that's been invalidated. That has to be adjusted somehow. Okay. But I'll need to do some work on that. It's not something I can just do in 5 minutes with you. But yeah, that has been invalidated, I would say. Well, that count has been invalidated 100% because you've took the low there. So it's no longer valid to remain like that. So I'd have to do a little bit of work on reviewing like what's going on there in terms of getting a count. But just to say that that's difficult to count because that is like anomaly central. It's not too often you see massive pumps and dumps like that, if we're honest, on crypto in such a short space of time. It's pretty rare. But yeah, I guess, like, yeah, to answer your question on the macro, I have to say looking for downside potential. I'd like to see, like, it's really difficult. It is really difficult because when we know on the macro, okay, all I want to say is, I'll end with this as my perspective. My perspective coming up to the halvening, okay? So this is very much macro perspective. But in my personal opinion, I think everybody views Bitcoin thinking, well, Bitcoin has to go up. Well, Bitcoin halvening is coming up. Bitcoin has to go up. Well, that perspective is very dangerous. And I do believe there's more people that think like that than don't think like that. E.g., more people will lose money if Bitcoin goes down. So what's the market more likely to do? That's a rhetorical question. But yeah, I really think that the halvening is, everybody's just so expecting it to go up. well, I think the market could play games and not do what everybody expects. But so yeah, the halvening for me, I'm not a fundamental guy. I literally couldn't care less. If I'm honest with you about the halvening, I literally couldn't care less. Only that it will bring more volatility, and that's all I care about is the volatility. At the end of the day, that's all I care about. But if this market's going up or down, I couldn't care less. But I do think more people will be caught offside if Bitcoin heads down lower. So yeah, that's what I would say on the macro. I favour downside. Okay, but I am very much aware that you obviously are still holding the golden pocket, although somewhat loosely. You're still obviously holding it. Okay, and then on the shorter term time frame within that you've gone another, not quite got to it. So you got this 7,000 region, really important support level. 7,000's lost. But it's starting to become a lot more bearish. But you've still 7,000 is still there until it's not. So you still got now with 7,000 support. Obviously, we just blasted through to 7,350. What I was imagining, 7,350 to hold some, at least put up a fight. But that just got blasted through totally. So yeah, one has to say, all I want to say is take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, because by next week I can totally change my perspective. But as it stands right now, I have to say I'm leaning to lower prices on the macro. Okay, so definitely leaning to lower prices on the macro, without a shadow of a doubt. This is very, very, very bearish market structure right now, and it's just like one of those. It's just very, very bearish market structure. You can look to take longs, but you want to actually wait for some of these levels to be reclaimed, unless, like I made it clear today, like today was a good long opportunity. In my honest opinion, it was a good long opportunity for day trading. So day trading, yeah, you can trade it long, but unlike the macro, while you're seeing the last 6 months, almost 6 months of just down, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, you just want to play cautiously when you're playing long. You can play more aggressively on the short side. I hope that makes sense. So like for shorts, you can be aggressive. But on longs, you really want to be conservative and only trade the longs when there's like a little bit of a trend change. Like today, for example, in the trading updates, like obviously I was on about the temporary support that you found around there, and remaining conservative on the shorts, like remaining in shorts, but I will only take a long after it's changed market structure. E.g., I'm very this is obviously day trading, but I'm still being conservative on the day trading longs, because you're more likely to make money on shorts. So I'm more aggressive on shorts than I am longs. And until the market structure changes, I got to say you're more likely to make money, or you're more likely to make money on the short side than you are long, because this market structure is really bearish at the moment. Okay, there's nothing bullish about it. Okay, the only bullish scenarios that you have is that you're holding you're holding around the 618, and then you've got another 618 at 7k. So for me, like 7k, well, around 6,800 is so pivotal. If you lose 6,800, I think we can see 5,160 come in pretty nice. I believe we can get that. Obviously, though, there are levels that I've not got marked out here on the way down prior to this, but that would be like my major sort of long-term target. Obviously, you got 6k, because 6k was the floor of 2018, so 6k is probably going to come in again. So you'll have to see how it goes at 6k, but 6k, 6.2k, there's going to be support around there, one would imagine. But just like everybody imagined it was going to be resistance, it got smashed through. So if everybody might imagine it as support, get smashed through again. It's just one thing to bear in mind as well. But yeah, I got to say on the macro, I definitely am. Well, I'm neutral. Currently, I'm neutral until like 6.8k is lost, and then I'd say. Well, this is the thing. I've been saying I'm neutral bias since the highs, but I've only been trading aggressively short now for the last few months. So although I say I have a neutral bias, I'm obviously aggressive on short. So you could say, isn't that a bearish bias, Daniel? Well, yes, arguably it is a bearish bias, I guess, but nevertheless, on the shorter term here, I'm still looking at 6.8k as a very pivotal level. Okay, lose 6.8k, and you're definitely looking at lower levels. But currently, while it's while you have still got the option of this 618 within the 618 as support, Still there is support, if that makes sense. Will you do a live stream at some point on order book? Yes, 100%. I am going to do order book, order flow for you all, level 2, etc. I will have got that planned. Awesomely explained. What a great tool. This 5th series is a moneymaker. Absolutely. This is like Fibonacci is amazing. It is amazing. It really is. What is your Bitcoin target? Well, my Bitcoin target, well, on the short term, I guess would be looking to trade to 7k really. So I guess 7k is likely next target. I'd like to see how this daily closes, if I'm honest. I'm not going to rush in to trade this. I'm literally, you can probably tell I've been in zero rush to trade this. But yeah, I'd like to wait for the daily close. I feel zero need to rush into this right now. Obviously, taking out the lows is a little bit of a really big red herring for me as a trader. But you know, you've just wiped out all the stops. You just have to remember that. So, but there's much more liquidity to the downside. So you got to imagine it's going down from here. But I'll happily wait till daily close. But yeah, head short. I'll head short from here. But yeah. I got to say next likely place that you go is 7k, but I'll update you tomorrow morning of how my perspective fully is, because this for me is a little bit I have to undertake what's just going on here. That's pretty crazy, but yeah, nevertheless I got to say 7k would be my next target. What would you look for now after this crazy move? I took 33%. Yeah, so if you took I know if you shorted that futures gap and you got that entry 7,800, well, as I said earlier, you're just absolutely amazed, because that's the most perfect short entry you could get on that. Literally was absolutely amazing. If you shorted the futures gap, congratulations, because that was just perfect. You know, you got to be taking profits after that. I really would say you got to be taking profits. Got to take some profits there. You know, maybe 20% profits. I would say you can now move your stops down to profits as well. So if you lock in 20% there, I would arguably move my stops down to around probably around 7,550, 7,560. Move my stops down into profit. And then let it roll, see the reaction at 7k, or alternatively, if this was a low and you head up, well, you get stopped out in profits. Wouldn't want to have my stop loss up here still after that move. If you're trading this more short term, on the shorter term, if you're trading this long term and you think this is a major high, I'd still keep my stops above maybe 7,861 being the weekly level. If you're short-term trading this, I'd have my stops to around, in profits, 7,560-ish. But yeah, one has to imagine this goes down to around 7k next, and then you've got to wait for the reaction off of that level again. Please show setup, expansion, extension again to be sure. Okay, cool. So this is the expansion. Let me make that smaller. So the expansion is when you have two pivots, okay, low and a high, and you would go on to expansion, okay, and that's when you have two pivots, a low and a high. Okay, the extension is when you have three pivots, okay, and you go from low or high at that, sorry, high to low to lower high. Okay, that is the extension tool. This is the expansion tool. This is primarily for me used on harmonics. This is used on primarily more on Elliott waves, I guess. But yeah, that's the differentiation between the two tools, expansion and extension. Okay, you need three pivots, you need two pivots. This is more harmonic use, this is more Elliott wave use, but they can be used individually with zero harmonic knowledge and zero Elliott wave knowledge. Dan, do you have any opinion on this Chinese Bitcoin Ponzi scam plus token? Never heard of it in my life, if I'm honest with you, Matt. Never heard of it in my life. I have no idea what Bitcoin Plus is, but it sounds like a Ponzi. A nice little pyramid going on. Oh, the setup values. Oh, apologies. Yes. So for the expansion, those are the expansion values. Okay. And for the extension, those are the extension values that I use. But yeah, if you pause the screen, then you can get that. If we lose the golden pocket area, I'm looking for the 786, which sits around 5,100. Yeah, I think 5,100 makes sense to me. But you know, for me, like these sort of macro views, you know, my macro, you know, saying 5,100 now, it could change tomorrow, you know. But yeah, 5,100 for me is a sensible looking area. If I'm honest, that 5,100 looks nice, but you know, this could go to 1,000. It could go much lower, or we could form a low at, you know, our low could be 6,900 and we move up from here. It's really difficult to say, especially after the volatility of today. It just adds in a whole level, another level of just, you know, I'm gonna be confusion when you see a 10% move up and directly a 10% move down. I gotta lean bearishly if I'm honest, because that's definitely not bullish to give it all back like that. Really not bullish, but yeah. Thanks, Daniel. I feel like I'm really learning something here. It's been crazy running the business through. I imagine, mate. I absolutely imagine. Yeah, and I also look forward to meeting you. What is that now? About 2 weeks time. That'll be really fun. It will be really fun. Cool. So I believe I might have missed some questions. I'm not too sure. I hope that I've answered all your questions though. Oh, if I go to the Bitcoin weekly, around 8th of April. Yeah, you can still look at that as like an order block candle, although it's like, that is definitely a doji candle, but you can still look at it in terms of like, there was clearly orders in there, wasn't there? Not from around high being 5.4, low being 5.1. You know, it all sits around this weekly. You know, that just for me, this region for me is really key. If you lose this, let's just say the worst case scenario, you lose that, well, it's really likely that you're coming down much lower. But obviously you got this standing in your way, so you know it's just kind of pointless me saying what's going to happen in, you know, 6 months time. It's really kind of pointless. But I guess it's good to have an idea of where we can expect reactions, but I can't say whether we're going to bounce off 5,100 and go down to 1k, because you need to see the reaction off of each levels, don't you? You really need to see the reactions off of each levels. Like, for instance, if we had claimed this monthly today, if price had, instead of getting rejected here and moved down, and price had done that, closed above and moves on, well, you get a totally different picture right now. So it's just that you need to see the reactions at each level to know or have an idea of what's happening next. And that's why giving predictions of like 6 months in the future is just kind of pointless, because you need to have the data, you need to see what's happening to actually, you know, have a perspective. Because let's say, for example, you know, yesterday obviously I was in a short and you know, expecting much more downside, but then let's say instead of seeing this reaction today, you know, let's say yesterday I was an ultra bear, okay, and then instead of doing this today, we had claimed the monthly, you know, let's say we claimed the week on really nice bullish volume, we're getting some nice higher highs, high and lows in here, and then we're starting to claim these levels, getting back above really key resistances. Well, then suddenly I would have gone from like ultra bearish to like, well, I wouldn't say ultra bullish, but more of a bullish bias in the space of a day, once some levels have been claimed and I've got the data. So it's really important, and it's also why the long-term predictions they're helpful in terms of getting a picture, an idea of where it can be going, and being aware of the levels for reactions of, you know, what you need to watch. But at the same time, it's also it's kind of pointless, because, you know, you can change predictions like this, or, you know, how you're trading like that. You just don't want to be stuck to a bias in trading. You want to just be really open to, you know, changing when the data tells you need to change, I guess. But yeah, that's all I'd say. There's so much selling going on right now. Dan, is shorting a good idea right now? I'm just gonna say no. I'm just gonna say no. It's kind of not a good idea if you just randomly jump into a short after this. I would say just wait for the daily. If you want to do what I'm doing, I'm waiting for the daily close. I'd enter into a head short. Okay, I'd head short right now. I don't think you want to be exposed to only being sat in spot or only I do favour downside, but what I will do is just literally go into a head short and wait till the daily close tomorrow. So that is what I would do if I'm honest with you. Oh wow, that's really crazy. And have you taken the lows yet on Binance? No, not quite. I'd really like to see what happens when you take the low on Binance, but yeah, I mean that's all I'd say. Like I'm gonna head short, and I'll wait for the daily close before I take a leverage position. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the stream there. We've been going on for about 2 hours. I hope I've done enough examples. I did think though today would be a longer stream because I wanted to go through a lot of examples, if that makes sense. Because when I was making the slides today, it was just like it's really difficult to like explain without showing the examples. It is really difficult for me to explain it on the slides. So I've done my best attempt at the slides. But yeah, like when you can like show the examples, it just makes it so much easier. Yeah. So I'm just thinking cool. Yeah, thanks everybody. I'll catch you over in the group, and that'll be it for tonight then. I guess I'll catch you obviously on Sunday if you're a champion, and we'll go over some more live trades, and on next Wednesday for the next part of the contenders streams, where we've got another Fibonacci next week, by the way. But I think we got about 2 more weeks left of fibs, and then fibs are over and we'll move on to the next topic. But there's still a little bit left to cover here. But thanks everybody for tonight. I hope that you've enjoyed. I guess because I ran out of questions on the fibs that you've all thoroughly understood the Fibonacci side of things. If obviously there are any underlying questions, or maybe you need to rewatch the stream a few times before you have questions, also normal, just post them in the chat and I'll get to your question. Got a bit of a pile of DMs to go through, but just post it in the general chat here and just post your question and I'll get to it. Okay, so yeah, that's so I say. Hope that you've thoroughly enjoyed this one. Thank you once again, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Cheers and good night. Thanks. Bye.